We've made it. We finally made it. It's the most wonderful time of the year, people. It's game week. Welcome to week one here in the Big Ten and college football and the rest of the nation. We are live this Thursday afternoon, August 28th, year of our Lord 2025. Welcome to Shaw's 10 Talk. I am your host and fearless leader, David Shaw. Jam-packed show for you today. We are starting things off with a bang here in the Big Ten Week 1. We got the UC Bearcats traveling to Arrowhead, or as some call it in these parts, Burrowhead. Not really sure why, because he hasn't beat the team the last couple of times that reside in that stadium, but I digress. Another show, another time, I guess. But like I was saying, we got the Bearcats traveling to Arrowhead to take on a team I am pretty high on, the Nebraska Cornhuskers. I have them ranked number 10 in my Big Ten power ratings, and you will soon find out where I have them ranked in the STT Top 15. What is that, you might be asking yourself? Well, that, ladies and gentlemen, is the Shaw's 10 Talk Top 15. You see, in another life, I only did a national Top 15. Why? Because as of right now, only 12 teams make the college football playoff. So I've never truly understood why they break down 25 teams and release them on ESPN every Tuesday. I just don't see the need for it. Plus, they do a ranking system, and I do my own. That is a cross between a rankings and rating system. It's who I think would win on a neutral field, all conditions equal. But not only that, sometimes a team may be ranked higher, but the team that they are facing is ranked lower and has a worse record. So why are they favored? Because the power rankings say so. So my poll combines the two. But more about that later. The Big Ten is riding high after Ohio State's 2024 national title, and Week 1 is bringing the heat. On Saturday, number 3 Ohio State is hosting number 1 Texas in the Horseshoe, a playoff rematch that has everybody talking. Redshirt freshman Julian Sayin, the 5-star former Alabama commit, is starting for the Buckeyes. Backed by Jeremiah Smith, Cornell Tate, and Caleb Downs, can they outduel Texas, Arch Manning, and their stacked roster? That's not all. Well, let's face it, that's all for the Big Ten. All the other big games are elsewhere in the country. But first, we are a Big Ten show, so we will talk Penn State's Drew Aller, Nick Singleton, and a loaded receiving corps finally get James Franklin the national title. Well, like all journeys, this one has to get started with the first step, and in this case, that's Penn State hosting Nevada. Like I said, we got a jam-packed show, so let's get into it here on Shaw's 10 Talk. Before we get into the Week 1 breakdowns, I have 2 more preseason topics to hit. The first one, my predictions for each team. Big Ten predicted order of finish. Some of you may have already seen this. I posted it on some of the social medias earlier this week. I do have Penn State winning the Big Ten, 8-1 in conference, 11-1 overall. Penn State's over-under is 10.5, so that one is an over for me. Finishing tied for second is Nebraska at 7-2, 10-2 overall. Nebraska's over-under is 7.5. That also is an over. Illinois finishing tied for second as well, 10-2 overall, 7-2 in the conference, and their win total is 8.5, so 10 wins makes that an over. Ohio State also tied for second, 10-2, 7-2 overall in the conference, and the 10.5 is their win total. That is an under. Oregon also finishing 10-2, 7-2 as well. Their 9.5 win total, I have that as an over. Washington finishing 6-3 in the conference, 9-3 overall. I have their win total as an over because their over-under is a 7.5. USC 6-3 in the conference, 8-4 overall, 7.5 is their win total. I have that as an over. Iowa 6-3 as well, 8-4 overall, and they're also 7.5, so I have theirs as an over. Michigan State 6-3 in conference, 7-5 overall, 5.5 is their over/under, so that is an over. And because you haven't heard them already, so obviously some of you might be shocked. Michigan 6-3, 8-4 overall, 9.5 is their over/under, so that is an under for me. Indiana 5-4, and 8-4 overall. 8.5 is their win total, so 8 wins. That's an under. Minnesota coming in next, 5-4 also in the conference, 8-4 overall. I have their win total as an over because it's 6.5. Wisconsin 3-6 in conference, 5-7 overall. Their win total is 5.5. Not going to get it done. I think Fickell is in some deep trouble here. Next in the line is Rutgers, 2-7 in conference, 5-7 overall. 5.5 is their over/under, and that 5 makes that an under. Maryland 2-7 as well, 5-7 overall. Their over/under though is 4.5, so the 5 wins makes that an over. UCLA 1-8 in conference, 3-9 overall. Their over/under is 5.5. 3 wins, that's an under. Northwestern, they win a game in the Big Ten, 1-8, 3-9 overall. Their over/under is 3.5. 3 wins, that's an under. And Purdue goes 0-9 in conference, 1-11 overall. Their win total was 2.5. I have it as an under. So what are your thoughts on my order of finish? Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments. While you are at it, go ahead and subscribe. I hear that helps the rhythm. Don't really know how. I just know it doesn't cost you anything, and it's easy to do. So go ahead, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button on the video. But let's take a look at the Big Ten Conference toughest schedules according to Shaw's 10 Talk. 2025 preseason toughest schedules. Number 1, Wisconsin, bar none. It's the toughest schedule in the conference. And that's part of the reason why I think Fickell's in trouble. Number 2 is Rutgers. Number 3, Purdue. Find it very funny to me, very odd and funny that the three of the worst teams in the conference this year, I'm predicting, have the 3 toughest schedules. And you may as well throw Northwestern in there too, because they have the 4th hardest schedule. According to myself. Number 5 is Iowa, 6 Michigan State, 7 UCLA, 8 Oregon, 9 Penn State, 10 Maryland, 11th toughest schedule in the Big Ten is Ohio State, 12 being Washington, 13 USC, 14 Indiana, 15 Minnesota, 16 Illinois, 17 Nebraska, and the easiest schedule, according to myself in the Big Ten, Michigan. So 2 teams that I think could do very well or could struggle, also not surprising, have the easiest schedules, Nebraska and Michigan. You have to remember this is the conference schedule, not the overall schedule, so the Texas and Oklahoma games mean nothing to this. After crunching the numbers, I must admit there was some surprising results here. No wonder I am high on Nebraska's second easiest schedule, and Michigan with the easiest schedule is nuts to me. But looking at the other end of the spectrum, the 3 hardest schedules are saved for the 3 of the worst in the conference, and that's just brutal. Not going to make things easy in Madison having the hardest schedule in the Big Ten, and Fickell will not get any bonus points for coming to the meeting at the end of the season saying, yeah, I know we only won 5 games or less, but hey, we have the hardest schedule. I don't think that's going to fly. So there isn't going to be a breakdown on every game. Sorry, skipped ahead. Sorry. It will be fun to go back and look at these toughest schedules at the end of the season to see what the difference is after the games are played out instead of using projections. Well, that's a wrap on the preseason talk. What do you say we get into week 1? Note there is 18 teams. So these breakdowns won't be the same as they were if you're not new and you've watched my videos from the past. So there isn't going to be a breakdown on every game when all teams play in a week. That's just way too many games, and I would lose majority of this audience in the minutia. So I'll be breaking down the big ones and glance through the rest. Let's start here in the Big Ten. There is no bigger game than number 1 Texas at number 3 Ohio State. This game is at noon on Fox Saturday. To the chagrin of most Ohio State fans, Texas does have a 53% chance of winning this ball game, but according to FanDuel, Ohio State is favored by 2.5. Both the Texas Longhorns and Ohio State Buckeyes are historically dominant college football programs, with multiple national championships and Heisman Trophy winners. The all-time head-to-head series between the 2 programs is tied 2-2. Ohio State won the 2024 College Football Playoff National Championship, defeating Texas in the CFP semifinal round. The Buckeyes are coming off a 14-2 season. Texas also made the college football playoff last season and had 12 players selected in the 2025 NFL Draft, 2 fewer than Ohio State's 14. It's the highest-ranked opener since number 1 Alabama beat number 3 Florida State 24-7 in Atlanta in 2017. It's a celebration of Arch Manning's nephew of Peyton and Eli and grandson of Archie, who has sole ownership of the starting quarterback job for the first time and is key to the Longhorns' hopes of making a third straight playoff appearance. It's the first start for Ohio State quarterback Julian Sain, who becomes the Buckeyes' third different quarterback in 3 seasons. This would be the first time a preseason number 1 ranked team would enter its opener as the underdog, according to ESPN. Some numbers to know: Texas holds the nation's longest win streak on the road at 11. Ohio State has won 25 straight home openers. The college football playoff might have just announced that it will care about strength of schedule. They will care more about the strength of schedule metrics now. Not to ruin Christmas for you all, but it already did. It's a wee bit of a stretch to say the loser of this is in trouble, but if Texas still has a trip to Georgia and a nasty date with Oklahoma and the rest of the SEC schedule to go, Ohio State has to play Penn State, has a few Big Ten landmines, and then it goes up the road to play the team up north. So in case you didn't notice, this is big. Manning will look the part, but Sain will be the real find. He won't be asked to do as much as Manning will, but he'll be just effective enough to let the rest of the parts shine. This won't be smooth, but the fourth quarter will be everything you've been waiting all season for. The bottom line is this: Ohio State is at home. This is Arch's first start in a game like this. If he proves me wrong, then so be it. I have Sain and the Buckeye friends, making the rest of Columbus happy for at least a week. Ohio State wins 27-24, and yes, kids, that's a cover. The next two games are we are doing this episode today. Do these games have the same national implications as Texas versus Ohio State? Of course not. But this is a Big Ten episode, so it's pretty important here. The first game means a lot around here where I live. Later tonight, at 9 p.m. Why? Because the college football world hates its fans. That's why. That's a topic for another day. So 9 p.m. on ESPN. Woohoo! The Cincinnati Bearcats are traveling to Arrowhead to battle the Cornhuskers. USC is the home team. Here, again, why? Reasons, I guess. But Nebraska has a 62% chance of winning this ball game. This will be Nebraska's 11th all-time game played in Kansas City. The Bearcats, 5-7 in 2024, who tied for 11th at 3-6 in the Big 12 last season, did not play a neutral site game last year. The Cornhuskers, 7-6 in 2024, who tied for 12th at 3-6 in the Big 10, were 1-0 at natural sites. Nebraska leads the all-time series between them and the Bearcats 1-0, but the teams have not played since 1906. Been a while. The Cornhuskers are 6.5-point favorites, while the over-under for the total points scored is 53. Returning for the Bearcats is redshirt junior quarterback Brendan Sorsby. In 12 games last season, Sorsby completed 64% of his passes for 2,800 yards and 18 touchdowns with just 7 interceptions, for a rating of 136.4. He also rushed for 447 yards and 9 touchdowns on 105 carries for a 4.3 average. He was the only FBS quarterback to register a 425-yard passing game last season against Texas Tech and a 125-yard rushing game at Iowa State on November 16th in 2024. Evan Pryor is the Bearcats' top returning running back. The senior, who played 2 years at Ohio State, carried 56 times for 418 yards and 6 touchdowns. 4 of those touchdowns were for at least 55 yards or longer. He had 5 catches for 100 yards, including an 80-yard touchdown reception against West Virginia on November 9th. The 80-yard score was the longest play of the season for Cincinnati and was the team's longest pass play since 2021. Nebraska is going to have to run the ball, because running the ball sets up everything else that this team wants to do. Run the ball, set up the passing game, then you can play action, pass over the top, which sets up the underneath, which sets up the screen passes, and then you can come back and run the ball and keep the defense off balance. Nebraska has to run the ball for at least 150 yards. If they don't, my preseason darling will be in trouble this game. I think Nebraska wins, but this game is going to be a lot closer than myself and other Cornhusker fans want it to be. Raiola, I feel, plays like the best player on the field, like he is, and Nebraska wins going away late, 31-20. At the same exact time in Madison, the Redhawks of Miami of Ohio travel up to Wisconsin to face Lou Fickell's Badgers. This game is also at 9 o'clock because of, well, reasons. This game is on Big Ten Network. I'm not going to do a full breakdown here. I'm bringing this one up because Wisconsin is favored by 17.5. And if Fickell doesn't get these guys ready to play Miami on this opening Thursday night, he may as well start packing his house because he's going to get fired. I'm not giving a point prediction on this one. Wisconsin should win. They should win big, and I'm very interested to see how the Badgers play. Two other games in the Big Ten on Thursday evening are Ohio at Rutgers at 6 p.m. on Big Ten Network and Buffalo at Minnesota at 8 p.m. on FS1. Rutgers is favored by 15.5, and the Gophers are favored by 17.5. Minnesota has a 92% chance of winning, and Rutgers has an 84% chance of winning. Not much more needs to be said about those. So we move on to Friday. Western Michigan is at Michigan State at 7 p.m. on FS1. Sparty is favored by 20.5, and Western Illinois at 7:30 p.m. on the Peacock. Illinois is favored by 45.5. Sparty has Illinois has an 84% chance of winning, and Illinois has a balmy 99% chance of winning. Let's see Sparty and Illinois win big. If not, then there's problems in paradise. And we move on to Saturday. Obviously, we have the big game in Columbus, but that is not the only game going on at noon Saturday. On the Big Ten Network at noon, Florida Atlantic travels to Maryland. Maryland is favored by 14.5 and has a 70% chance of winning. Also at noon on Big Ten Network, Ball State is traveling to West Lafayette to face the Boilermakers. Purdue is favored somehow by 18.5. Maybe one to look at, just saying. Purdue has a 74% chance of winning. Northwestern is traveling to Louisiana to face Tulane at noon on ESPNU. Tulane is favored by 5.5 and has a 75% chance of winning. I think Northwestern fights more here than the books and experts think. Moving to a weird start time in Bloomington, Indiana, we have Old Dominion at Indiana at 2:30 on FS1. The Hoosiers are favored by 23.5 and have an 89% chance of winning this game. Hoosiers, listen up. Don't start slow. Just a heads up. That's all I'm going to say. At 3:30, Nevada is traveling to Happy Valley where the Nittany Lions get in their eyes championship campaign. Nevada at Penn State on the mothership of CBS. Penn State is favored by 44.5 and has a 99% chance of winning this game. Interested to see how Penn State wins this one. Does Aller have some throws that give defenses in the future something to think about, or is it just a running game domination? I don't need to see Aller throw the ball 30 times, but is he productive, and can this new wide receiver room take the top off the defense? Those are the key things I'll be looking for in that Penn State game. Because if all they do is run the ball, and I'm not saying that this is a bury 'em type of thing for Penn State, because Michigan did the same thing in 2023. They played with their food until they had to when they faced Penn State on the road, the very first tough game they had to. So the same thing may happen here against Penn State. But I'm very interested to see how Drew Aller plays in that game. They should be able to throw the ball, and there should be some deep balls that get wide open, and it just should make things for an interesting watch. It's more than just looking at the score, especially moving forward. Moving on to 4 o'clock on Big Ten Network will give us our first look at the Ducks in Eugene versus Montana State. Oregon is favored by 27.5 and has a 95% chance of winning. The Dante Moore era begins for Oregon. How's he look? Does he look prepared? Is he making the right reads? Oregon wins this game and probably running away, but Moore is the big key here. Moore, the last time we saw him at UCLA, struggled, and he threw a lot of interceptions. Oregon needs him to be quick, decisive, and they run a precise completion percentage type of offense. This is the first time that Oregon hasn't been using a veteran quarterback, so it's going to be very interesting to see how Moore does in his first time out. Montana State, not much of an opponent, so most won't see what can be led here. But if he completes 72%, 75% of his throws and has a high yardage number and some touchdowns, then we move on and act like nothing happened. On the flip side, he throws some interceptions and only completes like 62 to 65% of his passes. Could be a note for worthy moving forward. Moving on to 6 p.m. on Saturday, UAlbany travels to Iowa on FS1. Iowa is favored by 38.5 and has a 99% chance of winning. Mark Gronowski makes his first start for Iowa, and would you look at that, it's against another FCS team that he came from in the offseason. I believe everyone in the country next week will know the name Mark Gronowski. The Bryce Underwood era begins in Ann Arbor at 7:30 on NBC. Michigan is favored by 34.5 and has a 98% chance of winning. It's quite simple. It's kind of like what I talked about with Aller and I talked about with Moore with Oregon. How does Underwood look? Michigan's going to win this game. Michigan's going to win this game running away. We already know that. Michigan's going to win this game running the ball. We already know that. Michigan's going to win this game by tough defense. We already know all that. What we don't know is how Bryce Underwood's going to look. That's what we don't know. And that's what I'll be watching to pay attention to. The other interesting thing here is how long does Michigan keep Bryce Underwood in the game? They got Oklahoma next week. So typically in a preseason game, this is what I basically call these games, you pull Bryce early because you don't want him to get hurt and have him available for the Oklahoma game. Here's the problem. As we already know, he's a freshman, so he needs the experience, especially moving to face Venerables next week. So that's going to be an interesting dynamic, especially moving forward. And I think game script could also have a lot to do with this. What if it's only 14-7, 14-10, 21-10 at halftime? That's a very interesting part to me. Again, Michigan does not need Bryce Underwood to be the savior of the program. Bryce Underwood needs to be a Jag, just a guy, maybe even Jag plus. Especially right now early in the season. They can start putting more on his plate moving forward towards the end of the season, and then you can start expecting more. My fear is, does Bryce Underwood show up week 1 in game 1 and he tries to be the all-star? Does he try to be Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City and we're not there? But then Michigan just doesn't need that right now. They don't need the turnovers. Let the defense and let the running game move over. But that's going to be the fun part to watch with the coaching staff on Saturday night. That's all I'm going to say, and I'll just leave it at that. Also at 7:30 on the Big Ten Network, Missouri State is traveling to USC. The Trojans are favored by 35.5 and have a 97% chance of winning. Does the offense reload, and does the defense finally make that last step? If USC doesn't cover, look out. Look out, Lincoln Riley. The last 2 games of the night happen at 11 o'clock. First one, Utah at UCLA on Fox. Utah is favored by 5.5, and UCLA has a 52% chance of winning. This is a sneaky good game possibly. Both teams starting a new quarterback, Devin Dampier for the Utes, and Nico, you know his last name, for the Bruins. If you stay up late enough, you should be rewarded by watching this one. The other game at the same time is further north up the West Coast. Colorado State travels up to Washington on Big Ten Network. Washington favored by 21.5 and has an 88% chance of winning. How does the Huskies defense look after having to replace all that production from last fall? And that, folks, is the Week 1 slate games in the Big Ten. Let's take a look at the landscape in the nation as a whole throughout somewhat of the Big Ten lens. So here's my very first STT Top 15 power ratings. And I hear some of you, what the heck is that? We'll go back earlier when I explained it, but real quick, it's the Shaw's 10 Talk Top 15. So here it is. My national Top 15. Number 1, Penn State. Number 2, Alabama. 3, Georgia. 4, Ohio State. 5, Texas. 6, Notre Dame. 7, Oregon. 8, Ole Miss. 9, Clemson. 10, LSU. 11, Michigan. 12, Texas A&M. 13, Miami. 14 Oklahoma, 15 Nebraska. Oh, I'm sure that will ruffle some feathers. Tell me what you think. Comment below. And while you are there, hit the like button and go ahead and subscribe to the show as well. And all of my other socials, at Shaw 10 Talk, and all that is free, and it helps us out. Thank you very much in advance. I gave you the over-unders for all of the Big Ten teams. Well, I have some national over-unders as I'm playing as well. Last year, I went 23-9 for 72%. I've been doing these for 3 years now, going 60-24-2, and that's 70%. Well, enough about the past. We have this year's, and here those are. I got Alabama's as an over of 9.5, Arkansas under 5.5, Cal under 5.5, Iowa State over 8.5, Kentucky under 4.5, Louisville over 8.5, again Michigan under 9.5, Nebraska over 7.5, Ohio State under 10.5, Penn State over 10.5, Rutgers under 5.5, SMU under 8.5, Stanford under 2.5, Virginia under 6.5, Virginia Tech under 6.5, Vandy over 4.5, hopefully by the end of October, and Wisconsin under 5.5. Well, I gave you my top 15. I gave you my over-unders. Why don't we predict the 12-team playoff? So, here's Shaw's 10 Talk preseason college football playoff prediction. Conference champions, ACC Clemson, Big Ten Penn State, Big 12 Iowa State, SEC Alabama. So the projected 12-team playoff would go as this. The byes, Penn State would go to the Rose, Clemson would go to the Orange, Alabama to the Sugar, Notre Dame to the Cotton. So the first round, the 12 seed Boise State Broncos at number 5 Georgia Bulldogs, number 9 Iowa State Cyclones at the number 8 Nebraska Cornhuskers, number 11 Texas Longhorns at the number 6 Florida Gators, and number 10 Ohio State Buckeyes at number 7 LSU the Tigers. That would be one heck of an opening weekend. The quarterfinals would go as follows. Cotton Bowl, number 5 Georgia versus Notre Dame. The Rose Bowl, number 8 Nebraska versus number 1 Penn State. Sugar Bowl, number 11 Texas versus number 3 Alabama. The Orange Bowl, number 10 Ohio State versus number 2 Clemson. Moving on to the semifinals, and the Fiesta Bowl, number 5 Georgia versus number 1 Penn State. The Peach Bowl, number 10 Ohio State versus number 3 Alabama. And moving on to the national championship in Miami this year, number 3 Alabama versus number 1 Penn State, and your national champion at the end of the season, the Alabama Crimson Tide. So some games of note this weekend before we get to the other two games I will be breaking down. Thursday, number 25 Boise State at USF at 5:30 on ESPN. Boise State's favored by 5.5 and have a 64% chance of winning. Friday, Auburn travels to Waco, Texas to take on the Baylor Bears at 8 p.m. on Fox. Auburn favored by 2.5. Auburn 52% chance of winning. And now we move on to Saturday at noon in Atlanta. I hate these week 1 neutral site games. I just do. It would be so much sweeter. Syracuse at number 24 Tennessee. Imagine that orange running out in the orange of Neyland Stadium. That game's on the ABC, the Battle of Orange. Whew, there will be some orange in Atlanta. Wow. It's probably going to be a little hard to watch if you ask me. But anywho, Tennessee's favored by 13.5 and has an 87% chance of winning that ball game. That game's going to be very interesting, and you may hear more about that tomorrow when I do my best bets. You may hear more about that one. At 3:30 on ABC, number 8 Alabama versus Florida State. At least this one is on a campus site in Tallahassee. Bama favored by 13.5 with a 91% chance of winning. Is Florida State anything other than mortal ooze? Do they have a pulse? And what does this new Bama look like? Especially on the defensive side of the ball. Because if everything Alabama is correct, that defense is going to look like a Nick Saban defense of old. That's just what I've been reading. It's just what I've been hearing on podcasts all across this country. Now we get to the second big one of the weekend, and I'm excited about Texas and Ohio State. Don't get me wrong, but I'm just as equally excited about this one. Number 9 LSU at number 4 Clemson. 7:30 Saturday on ABC. Clemson favored by 3.5 with a 54% chance of winning. This is what we wanted. This is what we waited 9 months for. This is what the powers that be are taking from us, those greedy bastards. Anywho, can either of the Tigers win a season opener? Can both Tigers show that they're ready to make a national title run? This is about respect. It's mostly about respect for the winner, who will instantly be thrown into the college football playoff true contender category. It's also about respect for the ACC against the SEC, respect for the Tiger nickname, respect for the honor of the respective Death Valleys, and respect for one of these teams to finally win a season opener again. How bad have things gotten for both these teams in season openers? Clemson lost to Georgia last year and Duke the season before by a combined score of 62-10. It's on a run of dropping 3 of the last 4. It's even worse for LSU, losing the last 5 lid lifters after the win over Clemson to close a historic national title campaign in 2019. Clemson gets Troy next before dealing with the ACC opener against Georgia Tech. And LSU gets Louisiana Tech before starting the SEC season against Florida. But for now, this is a college football playoff level showdown in prime time. Why LSU will win? Clemson is really, really, really good. It has the personnel, the depth, the experience, and the offense to hang around in a shootout against anyone. It has a defense too. But it has to go from very good to elite. It's hardly a bad bunch, but SMU was able to rally back late against Clemson in the ACC championship, and Texas was able to run well when it had to in the college football playoff. Of course, that was last year. This year's bunch will get run on from time to time too. LSU will want to get throwing from the start with quarterback Garrett Nussmeier and a loaded receiving corps too good not to let cook. But the tweaked offensive front should be able to bash away a bit, and the SEC Tigerbacks have a great blend of power and flash. It's LSU. The secondary is good. The linebackers should be terrors. New parts on the line will get rolling right away. Clemson will win. This is the best Clemson offensive. How will Clemson win? This is the best Clemson offense since the national championship caliber seasons before 2020. It took a little while to get everything together, but quarterback Cade Klubnik has been around long enough to know what he's doing. And finally, the receiving corps is loaded with elite parts to start ripping secondaries apart even more. The unsung aspect of those Clemson championship level years was a line that always produced. It might not have been full of NFL types, but it was steady, dependable, and it all clicked. This year's bunch is that good too. The LSU defensive front is good, but it's nowhere near the killer it should be for this program. 4 of the 5 starters are back on the Clemson O-line, and they're all all-star caliber. So who wins? LSU has more high-end talent. There's work to be done with the depth chart and rotation, and there's hope for some of the key stars, like pass rusher Harold Perkins Jr., to be healthy and back to form. But yeah, overall, LSU has the guys. But Clemson has the experience, the home field advantage will matter, and the defense will swarm in key moments to bother Nussmeier. LSU will throw for well over 300 yards, but the defense will let the offense down late in a wild thriller. Clemson wins 31-27. And that brings us to Sunday, where we find the last game I'm breaking down, and a sneaky game that some will overlook. The latter first. Virginia Tech at number 13, South Carolina, 3 p.m. on ESPN. South Carolina, 7.5-point favorite, 71% chance of winning. Beamer facing his father's school, where he became a Hall of Fame head coach. Does South Carolina build on last year's rise? So that brings me finally to the last game that I'm breaking down. Number 6 Notre Dame versus number 10 Miami. On Sunday at 7:30 on ABC, Notre Dame's favored by 2.5, 55% chance of winning the ball game. Each program enters 2025 with major aspirations shaped by how last season ended. The Fighting Irish are coming off a national championship runner-up finish to Ohio State, while the Hurricanes once again fell short of winning the ACC or reaching the college football playoff. It goes without saying that both of these teams have something to prove this season. Add in the fact that this used to be one of the college football's greatest rivalries, and the intensity inside Hard Rock Stadium is bound to be at an all-time high. There are interesting numbers that could make a case for either team. The Irish have lost their last 6 meetings in Miami, not winning there since 1977. Although one was to remind myself that Notre Dame beat Penn State in Miami just this past January to win the Orange Bowl to move on to the college football playoff final. So there's that. What's also significant about those losses is that they were all lopsided, with the Hurricanes winning by 3 scores or more in every game. On the flip side are the head coaches. Freeman, in his young career, has already eclipsed Cristobal, leading Notre Dame to last year's national championship game. He's also 14-5 against ranked opponents. Cristobal, meanwhile, is just 1-6 versus ranked opponents while at Miami. If this game were in South Bend, the lean would probably be toward the Irish taking the victory lap. However, with Cristobal and the rest of this team having so much to prove, and with a fiery home crowd on their side, Miami takes this opener and uses it to build upon what could be a great season. Before I close, I would be remiss if I didn't bring up the game Monday evening. Monday, you say? Yep, we have football week 1 from Thursday night all the way through Monday evening. So Monday, September 1st at 8 p.m., TCU is traveling to Chapel Hill, North Carolina to take on the Bill Belichick and his North Carolina Tar Heels. The game is on ESPN. TCU is favored by 3.5. TCU has a 59% chance of winning. How will Belichick be as a college football head coach? Very interesting. I'm not high on North Carolina. I'm not high on Belichick being a college football coach. But what I am high on in this game is North Carolina possibly covering, possibly winning outright. Think about this for a minute. The most prepared coach in football is Bill Belichick. He's had nothing but the offseason to prepare for TCU. It's not going to mean anything like Colorado beating TCU. It's not going to mean anything like that, but it's going to get a lot of the same hype if North Carolina wins this game. But I actually do believe North Carolina wins this game. And it's just how I feel about it. I think Belichick is going to have his defense fully prepared. I think the offense will be rocking and ready to go. Plus, North Carolina's at home. It's just how I feel about it. So that ends the week 1 breakdowns. I will be posting my best bets either Friday evening or Saturday morning. Definitely have some family coming in for the Labor Day weekend on Friday evening, so we will see when I get a shot to post them. So that's a wrap on this week's episode of Shaw's 10 Talk. Thank you very much for joining. We just dove into the electric week 1 matchups in the Big Ten and across the nation. And folks, it's clear we're in for a wild start to the 2025 season. From Texas traveling into Columbus to take on the Buckeyes in a top 5 showdown that could set the tone for the entire year, to Nebraska facing Cincinnati in a neutral site thriller at Arrowhead, the Big Ten is bringing the heat early. Nationally, we've got marquee clashes like LSU at Clemson and Notre Dame going down to South Beach to take on Miami that promises to shake up the rankings. These games aren't just season openers, they're statements with playoff implications already on the line. So grab your popcorn, set those reminders, and get ready for a weekend of football that's going to have us all buzzing. Thanks for tuning in to Shaw's 10 Talk. We'll be back next week to break these games down and get us set up for week 2. Until next week, be nice to someone, and God bless. Peace.